It's official, guys. The Nintendo Switch 2 has officially been announced. And hey, we kind of called this a couple episodes ago where I talked about, hey, it was going to be announced on the 17th. Give me my flowers, and no, not the Ulafala in the back. But all that being said, guys, we're going to be talking about the Nintendo Switch 2, what it looks like. We're going to show it. I mean, you can clearly see it on the screen right now. And what I expect to see, as well as the upcoming Direct that's completely tailored for it. All that and more in this episode of Decked Up, a gaming and tech podcast. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone to another episode of Decked Up, a gaming and tech podcast. I'm your host, Mekel Kasanova, and man, I am so excited today to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2. Man, I have been saying for the last couple years that when Nintendo with the Switch 2, it needs to come out and be powerful, right? It needs to be powerful enough to be able to do 4K gaming as a baseline, but also have the capability of having third-party support. Because what was the one thing that Nintendo Switch had that the Wii U didn't have, that the Wii also had, that the GameCube and 64 didn't have, but the Super Nintendo and the NES had? Third-party support. And right now, with how the games are coming out, there's no way that the current Switch can run something like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy 16, Metal Gear Solid Delta. Any of these games are coming out, Street Fighter 6, all these games are not going to be able to run on the Switch as it is, or if they are, they're going to be a cloud variation. Why did I bring up those titles, you're probably wondering? Because those are some of the games that are supposedly coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 close to launch. Well, Rebirth is supposed to be coming down the road, but nonetheless, we're going to look at this trailer. We're going to look at this trailer because right now, the Switch 2 that we know plays Nintendo Switch games. They're going to be exclusive Switch 2 games. And that's another thing we got to talk about. The name was brilliant. Now, I've said before, if they're going to do a sequel to the Switch, it has to maintain that name for the brand recognition. Now, I'm telling you this as someone who has a marketing background, right? I work with agencies. I've worked with Nintendo. I've worked with Xbox, PlayStation, Versace, Gucci, all these different brands, right? And I'm not making that up. Like, that is part of my credentials. I am a private consultant. I also do personal consultation for content creators and such. But when it comes to branding, right? The Switch has such good branding that there would be no reason for them to change the name to something weird. I mean, look at it like this. Nintendo Wii, right? Wii was a smash hit. Although they could have called it GameCube too, because technically it was just a slightly more powerful GameCube. That was it. However, when they went from Wii, which was a smash hit, to Wii U, the marketing message was horrible because people did not know what the Wii U was. People thought it was just the tablet, the game tablet. And it wasn't. It's because Nintendo failed to deliver on the messaging, which is why that was such a flop. Although I personally love it. I got a nice little collection of Wii U games. But nonetheless, the messaging and the delivering is where Nintendo lost. Now, the Switch came out. People were super skeptical of that. Smash hit. It's one of the most, if not the most successful Nintendo console this side of the Wii. And I think the Wii is still a little bit ahead of it. And also, the Super Nintendo, which is probably a peg below it. But it was super successful. Such great branding. They could not flub it up by calling it something else. Now, when I was on my buddy Ian's podcast, the Season Gaming Bitcast. We were fiddling around with different names that we were saying that would be great for it. And one of them was, they called it the Super Switch, which I thought would be great. However, Nintendo Switch 2 actually would hit stronger. And the reason I think it hits stronger is because people know Nintendo Switch. If you put 2, that clearly lets people know, oh, this is the new one. Because here's the one thing in marketing, and a lot of people don't want to say this, but I will personally say it. A lot of the casual consumer is not as clued in on all the new stuff coming out that an enthusiast like myself or you who are watching or listening to this podcast is. And you would think, oh, this would be common knowledge. Everyone would know what this is. No, that's not how that works. That is not at all how that works. A lot of people really don't know about the things that are coming out. They just don't. Because you think about it like this. We're in a time where there's so much bombardment of information, celebrities, politics, entertainment, our day-to-day life, fitness, if we're into that, whatever's going on with our family dynamics. There's so much that is going on that the attention, and also with the lowering of attention spans, there's no way for people to know that, oh, this is the new thing, other than it being constantly marketed, unless you get into like the Super Bowl, which I think there's going to be a commercial for this at the Super Bowl, guaranteed. Or, other things too, that like if it's in, a very popular TV show, you see some type of marketing. There's no way for the casual consumer to actually know everything that's going to be coming out. Okay. So y'all got to keep that in mind. But all that being said though, we're going to go ahead and look at this trailer for it, and then we will hop on back over and talk a little bit more about the Switch 2. Okay, we're on their website. Let's go ahead and hit it. Bigger screen, okay. Magnetic. Ooh, Type-C on the bottom. Volume power button. Another Type-C on the top. Yeah, baby. Pulling from that Lenovo Legion Go. Better kickstand. Yes. That's what I want. Bigger Joy-Cons. Okay. Nice. Yep, magnetic. To the Switch 2. Yeah, baby. Mario Kart 8, but we know we gonna get Mario Kart 9. Switch 2 dock, okay. Yep, coming out this year. Play Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive games with Nintendo Switch. However, certain Switch games will not be supported or fully compatible with Switch 2, which makes sense. What they are, I don't know, but we'll find out. Series of hands-on event held around the world. Switch 2 experience from Nintendo. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. All right. So As y'all see here, the Switch 2, right? Bigger screen, clearly. I'm hoping it's OLED. I could not tell from that. I'm thinking they're probably going to make it an OLED screen just because of how successful the Nintendo Switch. I think I got my Nintendo Switch OLED right here, all right? And this right here, this screen, I swear, like just you cannot beat this screen. This is one of the best screens out there, the Switch OLED screen. I know it's not popping through this my camera right now, but I like the OLED screen. I think OLED is kind of the way to go. I don't mind LCD, but OLED is kind of the way to go. Now, I'm hoping if we're going to talk specs, right? It's my hope that with the Switch 2, we have an OLED screen. I'm thinking it's going to be, since it's a little bit bigger than this one, it's probably going to be like an 8-inch or so screen. So it'll probably be somewhat, probably a smidge smaller than this right here, the Lenovo Legion Go. As you can see, like if I pull it back, there's a big size difference comparison. But a lot of what I saw in the Switch 2 presentation clearly was inspired by the Legion Go. Okay. Whether people want it, I don't know if other people are going to admit this or not, but the detachable things are similar to this, where this is magnetic. So there's a lot of pullover from that, right? Now it looks like they probably snap in a little bit easier than what they do on the Legion Go. But but they are magnetic nonetheless. Another thing that I saw pulled over from the Lenovo Legion Go is the dual USB-C ports, the port on the bottom as well as the port on the top. Now, why, you probably wonder, why do you need two USB-C ports? Well, because we're at a point now with most devices, you kind of want two USB-C ports. You want one to be able to charge it, and also if you want to do video out or use other types of accessories that you could directly connect into it. Or think of it like this. Say you want to charge it, but at the same time, you want to use something like what I have here. Let me see if I can unplug it. Something like this right here, which is the SteelSeries Arctis Game Buds. And these right here utilize a specific USB-C adapter. A lot of headphones nowadays, and also if you guys want to pick up this or the white variation, I'll have links down in the description below. But if you want to be able to charge your device and at the same time wirelessly use one of these headsets to have super low latency, then this is what you're going to want. You're going to want those two USB ports. And also, just because you don't want all of the, the power delivery going into just one area, you kind of want to distribute it too. Now, I'm hoping it does have, like I said, an OLED screen for one. I want it to be 1920 by 1080. If they can do 1920 by 1200, I'd be happy too. But 1080 needs to be the standard. Or they could do 1440p. Like this right here is a 1440p screen. I don't know if I necessarily feel that it's necessary for them to do a 1440p screen, but it would be nice nonetheless. I mean, especially if you think about it, upscale a lot of these old Switch games, and also the Switch 2 exclusive games could be running at 1440p. Why not? It's got to be powerful. Now, I will get to the power in a second, but nonetheless, you can clearly see that the Switch 2 was very inspired by the Steam Deck, clearly the Lenovo Legion Go, and many other handheld gaming PC devices. Why do I say that? Of course, like I said, detachable Joy-Cons, which I will forever call these Joy-Cons, right? The dual USB-C ports, and the fact that I think from a power perspective, let me put my Legion Go down. From a perspective of power, I have been saying for years that the Switch successor needs to have sorry, I had some stuff in my mouth that distracted me. Have me some protein oatmeal, some chia seeds and such. But anyways, I've always said that the Switch successor needed to have the power capacity that you see within devices like the ROG Ally, Steam Deck, and more so the ROG Ally, ROG Ally X, MSI Claw, particularly the A1 variation, and also the Lenovo Legion Go. Why? Because third-party support. The Switch struggled with things that weren't even first party. A lot of some first party games struggle too. Link's Awakening is a game that notoriously struggled to run completely. Was it Breath of the Wild 2 or Tears of the Kingdom rather? That one struggled to run as well. So we have known that it needed to have more power to be able to function in the way that it needed to for not only first party games but third party. Think of all the third-party games that did eventually go to the Switch. Think of Doom and Doom Eternal. Yeah, they were big sellers on the Switch. They ran at half the frame rate, instead of 60 frames per second like they are on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. They were running at 30 frames per second, and the graphics were horribly muddy. Still playable, but it was something that just did not run that great, especially now if you don't have a point of reference of how it runs on something else. Granted, fine, go with it, it's perfectly fine. However, those who are multi-console gamers, and I know a lot of people say, well, some people only can have one console. Shut up. Unless you broke, you can have more than one console. If you want more, get out and get it. But it got to a point where, like I said, Doom Eternal didn't run that great. Alan Wake Remastered really didn't run that great. Grand Theft, was it only what's the other game? Wolfenstein games didn't run or look that great on Switch either. And then you started having a lot of games that just couldn't run on the Switch, so they just did cloud versions. Now, those games like Resident Evil, was it 2 remake, 3 remake, and then you had Village, and I think, was it Village? No, it was 7, and maybe Village 2. I think that may have came down the road, but they were cloud versions, and if you didn't have decent internet, they were not going to run that well at all. They really weren't. So for me, I'm like, okay, this needs, also was a Control. That was a cloud version too. And there's a couple other games that are cloud, and a lot of people are just really upset with that. But at the same time, the hardware, when the Switch came out, the hardware was already old, right? That Tegra X1 chip was already, or custom Tegra X1 chip was already old. So they needed to have something more powerful to be able to run newer games. And when Valve came out with the Steam Deck, and that started showing people, hey, we can actually have, AAA games on the go. We could actually play Final Fantasy VII Remake. We could actually play Rebirth, which is now Steam Deck verified as of today, which is January 16th, 2025. We can finally have other AAA games, Red Dead Redemption 2, Grand Theft Auto 5. We can have all these games portable and playable on the go. Granted, being handheld PCs, battery lives are not going to be that great because these games are very demanding. But nonetheless, they are capable of being able to run on a handheld device. So Nintendo, obviously, they're not going to ever say that, hey, we're watching the competition or anything like that. But they are, because all companies do. That's the whole point of market research and market analysts and such. They look at what's out there. They look at, hey, especially I've worked a lot with R&D, right? A lot of people may not know this. I used to work for Microsoft within Xbox Game Studios. I was there for a while. I've done a lot of, I've helped SteelSeries with a lot of R&D, like these right here, the Arctis Game Buds that you're seeing here. These Also, I think I got the white variation. Yeah, I got the white variation right here. I helped with R&D with that. Same thing with AVerMedia with the Live Streamer Nexus audio interface. I helped with that. Also with a couple other devices that I need to grab, such as these two, the AVerMedia Elite Go, which just dropped today. My review will be out. Check that out, as well as the AVerMedia Extra Go. These are portable docks that work with handheld gaming PCs as well as Nintendo Switch, and they also work with the Switch too. So if you got this right here, particularly if you're traveling, use this. 100-watt power delivery. You can charge up to 3 devices at once. Also has a HDMI out, so you can do that, and the capability of connecting it to a PC via USB-C cable and playing on TV, capturing the gameplay on PC, as well as charging your devices. Excellent device, the AVerMedia Elite Go. And this right here, the AVerMedia Extra Go. This right here is great because you can just pop in a micro SD card and dock your Switch 2, as well as your gaming PCs, and this will allow you to capture your gameplay at 1080p 60 frames per second. And this is so good. Just a tap of a button. Yes, that's a plug for those. If you want to pick them up, links will be in the description. But I helped with the R&D of those. I've helped with the R&D of so many different devices. And when I say that, I'm bringing this up not only to brag about myself, because yes, I got a big ass ego and I'm going to brag about the things that I've accomplished. Two number one podcasts in Hawaii, Kasanova podcast, and this show right here, both sponsored by Spotify. Only person in Hawaii to ever do that. Anyways, all that being said, guys, I bring all this up because companies look at what the competition is doing. And by looking at what the competition is doing, that also allows them to see, okay, this is what's on the market. This is something we should probably incorporate, or we should probably do this, probably incorporate this aspect, probably add a little of this. Maybe we should just go back to the drawing board and just completely redesign this thing. That is how that works. So while Nintendo could have just done, hey, a slight spec bump on the Switch, which they already did with the Switch OLED. That was a spec, technically Switch 2.0, right? We had, or I say it's a 2.0 because that was the one that had an increase in the battery life before we got the OLED. So we got that one that came out, which was a Switch upgrade, right? And then we got the Lite, then we got the OLED. And OLED has the best battery out of all of them. So we've seen these evolutions occur over time, right? With the Switch, they've incorporated, when the Switch first came out, horrible battery life. Now it's better, way better, right? Look at Valve with the Steam Deck, bad battery life. Steam Deck OLED, fix the battery life, better screen too. So they saw that the handheld gaming PCs were on the market and they needed to improve. Because if the Switch successor came out and if it's just a slight spec bump on what the Switch was, third parties are like, nah, they're already getting frustrated by being held back trying to get games to run on the Switch. I mean, look at how horrible Mortal Kombat 1 looks on the Switch, or Hogwarts Legacy looks on the Switch. A lot of games, even, the other interesting thing too about the Switch was even third-party games that were like not graphically intensive ran like utter trash on the Switch. I mean, think of, what's the game? Eiyuden Chronicle, 100 Heroes. And Eiyuden Chronicle Rising. Both of them ran horribly on the Switch. At least Rising could run 30 frames per second, whereas it's 60 frames everywhere else. But Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes barely could run. Barely. You go into a battle, you're waiting like 30 seconds to a minute for the battle to load. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And in other games too, I'm trying to think of the name of it. Oh yeah, Tales of Symphonia Remastered that came out on the Switch. That game ran rough. A port of the a port which was okay. That was the PlayStation 2 version that was ported to PlayStation 3. That was again ported to PC. That the PC version was ported to Switch and PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And it ran horribly on the Switch, which is ridiculous. So if Nintendo didn't make it more powerful, third parties weren't going to deal with them. They just weren't. It just wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to happen. They weren't going to deal with it. Which means Nintendo would go back into what they have had. They have one console or maybe two back to back, as they have with the NES and Super Nintendo. They were successful. And then they had the 64 and the GameCube, which were not successful. Then they had the Wii, which was super successful. Then they had the Wii U, which was an absolute flop. And then they had the Switch, which was successful. So because of the cyclical nature, the ebb and flow of how Nintendo operates with their successes, or the oscillation of it, a lot of us were like, all right, well, there's going to be a whole Wii U situation again. I'm still seeing people actually say that on the Switch 2. It's in the comments of the Switch 2 release trailer on YouTube, as well as on their X posts or Twitter posts. Because a lot of people are just skeptical. They're like, hey, I don't know if the Switch is going to be able to. But no. Nintendo clearly they've learned their lesson. You don't need to redesign the wheel, and hopefully they don't try to make it too gimmicky either. Now, it did state that there are going to be Switch games that are not going to run on the Switch 2. What they are, I don't know. From what I can tell just by looking at the Switch 2, it looks like everything that the Switch had, the Switch 2 has. I'm thinking the dock is going to be a 4K dock. Again, I'm going to say the screen is probably going to be 1080p. 1920 by 1080p. Wouldn't mind 1440p, but technically sweet spot for me would be 1200p, but I don't see them doing that. I see them doing 1920 by 1080 just because when you're handheld, anything higher than that, you're probably not going to notice all the details. And magnetic Joy-Cons, which again, that's a pullover from the Lenovo Legion Go. And better kickstand, which I like that the kickstand doesn't take up too much space. I'm assuming that the micro SD card slot is going to be in right up underneath, where the kickstand is, kind of like it is on the current Switch. I see that being a thing. And other than that, I want to talk about some of the games. Like we've heard, so the rumors are that we're going to be getting Metal Gear Solid Delta, as well as Final Fantasy VII Remake at launch, right? Also, apparently Street Fighter 6 and Galro or Fatal Fury City of the Wolves. I've heard that rumor too. Now, I will say this, with what I also have heard too, right? Because I've heard some industry stuff, is that a lot of companies that make fighting games want to bring their fighting games over to this Switch 2. So we could be seeing Tekken 8. We could be seeing, KOF 15. We could be seeing Virtua Fighter 5 Revo. We could be seeing Virtua Fighter 6. Games that run with Unreal Engine 5 will be able to run allegedly on the Switch 2. Now, I will say that a game that I honestly think will be a launch title, I think we're going to get Metroid Prime 4. The reason is I don't think Metroid Prime 4 could run on a Switch. I mean, that game got announced back in 2017, and then we've heard nothing up until, what was it, like a year ago? Last year, I think, 2024 is when we heard something. They showed off like a little bit of it at one of Nintendo Directs. But at the same time, I'm looking at that and I'm like, when I was looking at that trailer, I'm like, there's no way this is going to run on a Switch. It's got to be on the Switch successor. I think that's going to be, if it's not a launch title, then I think it is going to be the fall title, like to end it. I also think Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is going to be a launch. I think there's going to be a Switch and Switch 2 version of that game. And I think outside of that, any older games that were running downclocked, I think we're going to get a performance mode. I think the Switch 2 is going to have a performance mode and a quality mode like the current consoles have. So older games are probably going to get a performance boost. If they're running at 30 frames, they're probably going to get boosted up to 60 frames per second. I also think the games will be able to run out of the box natively 60 frames, but I think they're going to be able to boost up to either 90 FPS, if not 120 FPS. I also think the screen refresh rate on this is going to be 120 hertz. I think it's going to have, and this is me throwing out a wild card, I think it's going to be 120 hertz, 1080p screen, with the capability of the dock allowing you to output 4K. I don't think it's going to do 4K 120. It would be nice if it could, and I think it truly could. I think it truly could, but I don't think that that's going to be a focus for them because, you know, does everyone have TVs or monitors? Again, outside of us enthusiasts and gamers that are hardcore, does the casual person have a TV that can do 120 hertz? You have to think about that. So I think it's going to do handheld 120, docked, not really, but it's possible. You know what? F it. Let's just say, yeah, it's going to do docked 4K 120. 4K on the lower end. Maybe checkerboard upscale. I don't know. If y'all want the real nitty gritty, go watch some Digital Foundry. They'll take care of you. But that's and as far as the launch lineup, I think we're gonna get 7 Remake, Street Fighter 6, Tekken 8. I think we're probably gonna also get Resident Evil 4 Remake. What else? City of the Wolves, Mario Kart 9. They're gonna announce Mario Kart 9. They can't keep running Mario Kart 8. Mario Kart 9. Probably a new Mario game, like platformer. Because think about it, it's been almost 10 years since Odyssey came out. We're 2 years away from that being 10 years ago. So new Mario game. Probably Metroid Prime, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Diablo 4, and I want to throw out 2 other titles, possibly 3. But I'm going to throw out 2 that I think is going to happen because of the partnership with Nintendo or Microsoft or Xbox. Because I already mentioned Call of Duty, right? And Diablo 4. I also think we're going to get Halo, Master Chief Collection, in Forza Motorsport. And yeah, yeah, that's what I think we're gonna get. That's what I personally foresee. I think we're gonna get those. I think the dock. I kind of want to mention this. I know my thoughts are all over the place because it's just popping in my head, right? I think the dock is gonna have a built-in Ethernet port, 1 gig, and 2 USB ports, which are going to be one US, probably two USB A 3.2 Gen 2, and a USB C, like a Thunderbolt 4 type of port. Probably two of those. So four USB ports, two USB A's, two USB C's, Ethernet input. And yeah, that's all I can think about that it will have at the moment. So, all that being said, I want to know what you guys think. What do you think we're going to see on the Switch 2? Let me know if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, wherever. Let me know in the comment section of the episode. If you're watching this on YouTube, let me know down below. And other than that, we're out of here, baby. This is another episode of Decked Up, a gaming tech podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will be covering the Switch 2, more videos on that. And also, when it comes out, I will be getting my hands on it, doing a review. I will be making a lot of content for Switch 2 games. And yeah, all that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. Also, give us a follow and or subscribe here on YouTube. Like the video, sub to the channel if you haven't already. And all that being said, we're signing out. Y'all have a blessed and aloha-filled day. And with that being said, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace out and a hui ho.